Okay. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas Perek Vav. We're going to be concluding Halacha Aleph and beginning Halacha Beis in the Ois V'Haders edition. We are going to Daf Samach Dalid. We left off on Samach Dalid Mamish all the way on top of the Amid. We just came off discussing what we refer to as Bracha Me'ein Shalosh. And as we actually concluded yesterday's share, Lashita, according to the second interpretation of the Charedim, that not only do we make a abridged blessing that has in it the three brachas of Birchas Hamazon, but we actually include the fourth, as we do, Ki Ato Hashem Toivu Meitiv Lakoil. And now we're going to have more details regarding Bracha Me'en Gimel vis-a-vis what happens Shabbos, what happens Yom Tiv. Do we and where would we include a mention of these holy days? From there, we're going to go on to the halacha that if a person has in front of them two options of bread over which you're going to make hamoitzi, for the bracha, you have to pick the choicest one. Question is, halachically, how do you define that? So there's going to be a specific rhyme and reason. And yes, ultimately, there'll be a point where there's going to be two, chad l'malyusa, chad l'greyusa, and you'll have the option to pick whichever one you want. And then we're going to start today, God willing, the second halacha, the second Mishnah of the Perek. The Mishnah is going to speak about someone who mixed up brachas. The Mishnah is going to focus specifically on Peiroi Sa'ilin versus Pri Ha'adama. And as the Mishnah is going to tell you, the big difference that if you make a bracha on a vegetable, boire Pri Ha'etz, which is incorrect, that bracha is not valid. We've already learned before, yeah, it's considered like a bracha levatala. Yes, you'll have to say Baruch Shem, and you'll have to make a new bracha. Masha'inkin, if a person picks up a fruit, Pri Ha'etz, fruit from the tree, and mistakenly they say, boire Pri Ha'adama, says our Mishnah, that post facto the bracha will be okay. And there's going to be a link between this topic and a sugya that we have in Bikurim, and a Havamina that our Mishnah only follows Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, which is actually the maskana of the Bavli, but that's not the way it is in the Yerushalmi. We're going to speak about that attempted connection, and then the Gemara is going to hear in Yerushalmi conclude, regardless how we paskin by Hilchos Bikurim, how do we view a Pri Ha'etz? Do we view it getting its primary source of nourishment from the tree? Do we view it as it's getting its primary source of nourishment from the ground? Regardless, by the brachos, b'diavad, if you made a boire Pri Ha'adama on a Pri Ha'etz, you will be yoitza. The second din of the Mishnah is about a shahakol. How the Mishnah says that the bracha of shahakol b'diavad is good for all foods. And really, we're going to see in the Gemara that this is a three-way machlokas tanoim. When do we say that shahakol b'diavad is good for all? Is it all? Are there exceptions? As we'll learn the sugya, and if we'll have time to begin, and if not, that's okay. We'll begin in the next year. But it doesn't matter to speak out on the intro. It's fascinating, and that is like this: that today we're going to learn in the beginning about you have two loaves of bread. You know, one wheat, one barley, one whole, one broken, one fine flour, one coarse flour. Which one is considered the mufchar? Now we're going to learn about something else. When you have a variety of foods placed in front of you, upon which you'll have to make various brachas, and the question will be precedence. Which one do you take first? Right? This is something that happens the entire time. So at least as an intro, There are many rules that we'll have to learn how to balance together. Rule number one is that we avoid making a superfluous blessing. In other words, if the options will be in a way that if I will choose option A, I will make one bracha and it's going to be good for many types. But if I'm going to choose B, then I'll have to make more brachas. As a rule, we avoid making a bracha that's not needed. Another klal, that when you have different foods in front of you, there is a concept of pick the food that you enjoy most. It's like a personal thing. If that is what you want right now, that's a svara for it to take precedence. Then there's another klal. There are certain brachas that include many foods, like shahakol. There are other brachas that are more specific. So another rule, the bracha that's more specific takes precedence over the bracha that's more general. And many times, we're going to see how these rules, they go against each other. Then you're going to have to pick which one trumps the other. This is going to be fascinating topics. Again, I don't know how far we're going to get if we'll begin, but let's start Chevra Mamash on top of Daf Samach Dalet. Okay. So now that we spoke about the bracha mein gimel and we clarified some of the nusach, explained some of the nusach, the Gemara is asking, if there is a special occasion like Shabbos, like Yom Tiv, like Rosh Chodesh, do we make a mention of it in what we call ala michya, ala gefen, and bracha mein gimel? And the answer is yes. Amar Rab Abba bar Zimina, that I want you to know, everything is a story here, that Rab Ze'era have a maskeba me'ein ha'ma'oida. Yeah, he would make a mention. And just to say how we do it, that we say, right, that's on Shabbos, or when it comes to Yom Tov Rosh Chodesh, we say v'zachreinu l'toiva. That was just yesterday. We do make mention. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, here's the chai. Hoil v'chashla Rab Ze'era. Since Rab Ze'era chash means not he was chayish, he actually mentioned it. So oy bazoi, we're gonna. That's not just a ma'isa. Oy bazoi tzrichin anu michosh. We all have to make a mention of it. Okay. Now, being that Baruch Hashem bekamus, there's not that many words we have to cover. So I would like to thank Rabbi Yosef Grossman, Olav Shalom, from whom I heard Gavaldik. First Rab Chaim, and then I forgot the name, but there was a Rosh Hashiva in Geitza that built on it. Okay, the first, but Rab Chaim Brisket was concerned about is very simple. When you open up your Siddur, and that's behemshik to what we learned yesterday, when do we mention in Birchas Hamazon, let's say, or Yalav Yavi, or both, when do we make mention of it? Before we say Uvenei Yerushalayim. Before we say Uvenei Yerushalayim. When do we make mention inside the Bracha Me'ein Gimel, like we mentioned, or when do we make mention? After we mention Yerushalayim. Now, actually, if you remember the hemshach of the Gemara right now, we concluded yesterday, explaining that why don't we end with mentioning Yerushalayim? But we explained the rhyme and the reason that when Chayalim are working, they make a first bracha full, and then they make an abridged two brachas, and that is the formulation for beautiful. But we're saying it in the wrong place. That's the kash. In other words, we should have said in middle of the first part, before we mention Yerushalayim. Why don't we do that? That's a kash. So he said that Rab Chaim gave a Gavaldik catch, which is like this. If you remember, when we learned not that long ago, here and then before in Brachas, Havinenu, when we learned about making an abridged Shmoina Esrei, and how Shmuel and others say that you can do it when Halach allows you to make that abridged Shmoina Esrei, which is the three are full, the last three are full, but the middle bracha has a me'ain of every one of the 12, 13. But Hamatzei Shabbos Kodesh, you can do. Why can't you do it? Because you cannot include Atochen Anton. That's what the Gemara says. And everyone asks on the Gemara, why can't you include Atochen Anton? Say, and why can't you do that? But you can't make mention of it. The answer is that when you look at the Nusach of Havinenu, since every word represents an entire bracha, If you were to include over there hamavdil ben kodesh l'choil, one would think that hamavdil ben kodesh l'choil in havinenu represents an entire bracha when you read out the Shemona Esrei. And when we make Havdalah in Shemona Esrei Motzei Shabbos, we don't make it into an entire bracha. We don't do that. We include Atochen Antonu, right? Not like Rabbi Akiva, not like Rabbi Eliezer. Remember those shitas? We include it inside Atochen Eladam Das. So that's why you can't do the abridged form. Now, 1 second. Now here comes Akasha, says Rab Chaim. When you bench, when it comes Shabbos, do you make a bracha for the Tzeva Achlitzenu? No, you don't. You include it in. So now the question is on this Rab Zera. How can Rab Zera say, which is what we paskin, that you make mention of it, if you can't mention Atachin Antonu in the Havinenu, because it's going to look like it's representing a full bracha, why would you not say it over here? So therefore, Rab Chaim answers Gaval. And this is something that people should know. What happens if you're benching and you forget, let's say, or if you forget the Alav Yavi, and you concluded Boine Barachim Shlaim Amei, but you didn't yet begin the Hatoivu Meitiv? It's in the Siddur. You make a full bracha. You say, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Shabbos Yom Tov Rosh Chodesh. So to say and Alav Yavi, if you mention it after Yerushalmi, it is articulated as a full bracha. Gavaldi. That's why in the bracha me'in gimel, where do you place it? Dafka after you mention Yerushalayim. You mention these words, we say before you say the words, Ki ata Hashem toivu meitiv lakoil. Because dafka, when it's after Yerushalayim, prior to Atoivu Meitiv, dafka there, we're in the full benching, it's a full bracha. Now you are allowed to make it abridged. Based on that, Zokter Gavaldik, that the Rebbe Shivan Gatesat says, I have a kasha, and that's the answer. His kasha is, why don't we make a mention, not of Purim, not of Chanukah? Today's Abashgacha process, we're learning the Tafshan Samach Dalad, Daf Samach, I'm sorry, Pei Dalad, I'm confused. But Daf Samach, we're learning this Chanukah, Tafshan Pei Dalad. Why don't we mention Chanukah in Me'en Gimel? Why don't we mention Purim and Gimel? That's a good question. There's no mention of it. And now that's the answer. Because in the benching, do you know where you mention the Alanisim? Dafke inside a bracha, and by Chanukah and Purim, if you forget it, you don't mention it as a bracha b'fnei yatzma. We don't do that. Either you stayed in the right place or you forgot it. So anything that's not mentioned as an entire bracha, when you give out the longer version, you may not make it into an abridged version when you're saying the Me'en Gimel. Isn't that great? And here, instead of quoting Amiroim, we're going straight to Atana. Says Gemara Tani. When you have, here's the thing you do, you have different rolls of bread in front of you. There's only one bracha now, this, hamoitzi. Question is, which one will you put in your hand? And yes, put it in your hand. That's another thing we just learned a few days ago. You don't make it over the bowl. When you make a brachas, you pick it up and in your right hand. Which one? So let's learn about halachic. What's more minamufchad? It's really about what's more important, halachically, what's considered better. When you're making a bracha on dagan, meaning the 5 grains, meaning hamoitzi, which one will you pick up in your hand? On the one kishuhu minamufchad. So now let's bring it down. So you have kuluskin ushleim. Now, kuluskin means a loaf that's made out of fine flour. Don't confuse, Chevra, bleached flour. I know that they're not wrong. The neutralists, the nutritionists, the white bleached flour, taka is not good, relative to. Not that I'm the maven. I'm giving them maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. But any flour that was not sifted, that means if you have the bran in it, whole grains, al pi Torah is less chashuv for a person. For a behema, whole grain is more chashuv. You have to know who you are. But we're speaking about people. So if you now the balabatim, a balabas, that's the way it was. They were not. They had bran because everyone made their own flour. They didn't have the kalim that was able to sift it out as good as. Here you go. Not a lot of remembering from his baba that they sifted in the house in Brazil. Even after you buy everything, you have to sift it again. The rice. There's more. Anyway, okay. Okay, so that just to know. So if you have two whole loaves of bread, and the only question is, one is refined flour. The Torah calls that soilus, but we're going to follow these words: kaluskin, and you have a buff from the balabas. You have a homemade. They normally didn't have such refined flour. So what's called min amufchar? So oimer ala kaluskin, right? We're going to follow. We're going to learn the Pnei Moshe. Kaluska mishlem shel balabayis. Hoy lefon of plus kaluska yafe. Ushniya shel kibir, and that's also a good word to remember. That's in the guys. We're learning the Pnei Moshe. Kibir kuf yud beis reish means coarse flour. Kibir means whole grains. Whole grains meaning that they didn't sift out the bran, so that's inferior. Now the reason why you take the kaluskin, because they're both shleimos. Aber now let's go to another thing. If you have prusa shel kaluskin, you have a kaluskin, you have fine flour, bread from fine flour, no bran in it. Aber it's prusa. Prusa means it's not wholesome. It's not wholesome. That's a chisaron. You have a shleima, but it's only from the balabayis. It's made out of kibir flour. So what comes first? So here says the Braisa, that oimer ala shleima shabalabayis. Okay, that's a big rule. Okay. In other words, wholeness is greater than fine flour. Let's say what we are educated from the Baal Shem Tov, a pashat mensch, that's called wholeness. Ish pashat. Whole person is a lot better no matter where he's at, even though his flour is not fine. He's a mushlam. The simpler the person, the wholer they are. The holier they are. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that there's nothing more wholesome than a person with a broken heart. And I think you have a lot of whole people today. The Kutzke. Okay, they stand corrected. Now, next. Pas chitim or pas so'idim. Okay, non-brainer. So the din is, oimer al tol chitim, because chitim is Michael Adam, and so'idim, barley is Michael Behim. But here we go weiter. Next kasha. What happens if you have perusa shel chitim, and you have a shleima shel so'idim? So before, when we were comparing the kaluskin and the balabayas, right, the Braisa says that shleimus trumps. Not over here. Not over here. Here, chitin is so superior than so'idim, then even if you have only a perusa shel chitim, it takes precedence over the shleimus of the so'idim. Next, you have so'idim and kusman, spelt. Now, spelt is a tolda of chitin. So you would think that Oibazoya Kusman takes precedence. Says the Braisa, no. You say on the so'idim. I asks the Braisa of a haloishal Kusman Yafa Mimenu. Isn't Kusman is superior? The answer is yes, it is. But there's something even more superior. Anything that's mentioned in the Torah becomes superior. The fact when the Torah mentions the Shiva Saminim, the Torah only mentions two of the grains, Chita u'Sa'ira. The Torah mentions Sa'ira, boom, that makes it more chashuv. Ella answers the Braisa, Shazumi min Shiva, Vazu, Eina min Shiva. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yaakov bar Achon, the name of Rabbi Ze'era says that I want you to know that this previous Braisa follows another Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. And now we're going to quote, we have a Rabbi Yehuda quoted in a Mishnah soon, the Rabbi Yehuda Amar, that Rabbi Yesh b'nei min Shiva. If you have a lot of types of foods in front of you, and amongst them you have any one of the seven mentioned, right, in Parshas Ekev, so all of whom evarech, and there you see that it being mentioned in the Torah makes it more chashuv, even if begashmi is nutritionist wise, it's not considered more chashuv. It becomes more chashuv. But let's say for the body, you want to know what's more nutritionist. So chitin is more better than so'idim. Kusmin for the body, for your neshama, Torah. Okay, right. Now, pas temeo, pas tohira. There's nothing wrong with a non-kohen or any person who's not going into the Beis HaMikdash eating Talmudic food, even though there were people, Bezman Ba'isheni, that as a chumrah took upon themselves to eat chulin betara, And just to make it clear that when you eat tamei food, midrabanan, right, depending on the quantity of food, you will become tamei, right? But you don't care about that right now. The fact is, one is tamei, one is tahor. So which one takes precedence? So Rabbi Barva, right? Bar Abba Omar, Omer al shel tahoram. Omer al shel tahoram. This is even for a person who normally is not makbid. Another rule, pas nikia tameya. Now let's go back. No, in other words, this topic was by the Amriroim, Toira and Tameya. Now let's put this together with the Brais. What happens if you have pas nikia? Pas nikia is the kaluskin. In other words, the flour was sifted, but it's tummy. Kibid, right? The word we had before in the Pnei Moshe, the balabatisha donut. Go have a donut from a bakery, a donut from kibid, it's tam gemacht, but it's tohira. Now, which one goes? So finally, we come to a point. Yesh bozeh masha ein bozeh, and you got to pick. Rabchia bar Ado b'shem Rabacha al eza mehem sheyirtza yivarich. And by the way, we spoke this out on the intro. Even if we're not going to get that far, al eza mehem sheyirtza yivarich is a big klal, one of the many klalim when it comes to precedence, which is the one that you want. Not, I don't know which one is better. You know, there's do what you want, as like. Doesn't matter. No. The determination will be which one do you want, and the one that you want. So Rabbi Bauer is saying that's the one you don't eat. It's kafir. Oichet good. Doesn't matter. That's also a svara. Huh? Okay, Gaval. Now. When they want? No. So I'm not eating it, but that's the one I wanted it. Yeah. Okay, let's go right. Now, koida, there's a big machloikas here what koida means. Either koida means branches of a palm tree, or koida means heart of palm. This is really, really negay. Okay? And what basically happens is, let's go with the understanding that we're speaking about pashut branches of a palm tree. And when a new branch grows out, in the beginning, it's soft and edible. So the question is it a fruit? Because you can cut it off, or it's coming out of the ground. Oh, so So Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha, in the name of Shmuel, says, Oimer olav, boire prio eitz. Two things. It's edible, and it grew from the tree. It's edible. Yes, and by the way, we're going to read in the Pnei Moshe in a few lines from now a very important definition of pri ha'etz, right? Like banana comes out of a tree. We don't make a boire pri ha'etz. We do make a boire pri adama. We'll see in a moment soon. Well, hold on. But that's only in the name of Shmuel. But we have a brayso that says that Rab Chalafta ben Shol says no shakol li b'dvarei. Wow. And the reason for that is because when you plant it, you did not plant it to eat the branches. That's why it's not heart of palm over here. No, it's you planted the tree to have the dates. And because of that, you cannot make on it a boire pri ha'etz, even if de facto it grew out of the tree and it's edible. That's a very important klal. And why do you make a shahakol? Because that's, as we'll be learning, whenever something doesn't fall into the general rules of brachas, what bracha will you make? A shahakol. Now we have a third opinion. That Tani, Rabbi Yeshua, you make boire mine dishoyim. And says the Gemara, I want you to know that the Braisa taught by Rabbi Oishia is in disagreement with this Tani Rabbi Yeshua. And how do I know that? Because there is a Braisa of Rabbi Oishia that tells us, when do we make the bracha? Boire mine deshoyim. And when do we make it? Says the Braisa, ve'elu hein mine deshoyim. Now the Braisa is going to enumerate four. Some of them, we don't even know what they mean. Most of them, there's an argument what it means. But the gist will be that if the Rabbi Oishia would have held that you make on Choira, you make a boire mine deshoyim, it would have been included in the Bryce. And just to know that sometimes the Gemara rejects that logic. Sometimes we say Tana V'Shir. But let's read away. What are the four of this Braisa? Number one, Kinaros. So Kevin is finally busy. The artichoke. Hachalima is mellow, whatever that is. And dimua, you know what beautiful is? Dimua means something that we are confused. Dimua means for mixed up. Dimua, we don't know what dimua is. And otad thorn bush. And not I know the Lashon HaKodesh, not that this is so according to everyone, and not I know what it means. It doesn't matter. The Gabe knows what it means, but it also doesn't matter because the logic over here is not what the Bryce is talking about, is the fact that it did not include Kaida, is a raya that you don't make by them in addition. Something that we do not make.
We don't do it.
No.
Is this following? Before Rabbi
Yes, we do. Very good.
So is this like in Rabbi Yehuda?
Yes, for sure. Not like the Chachamim. The Chachamim generalized. And I want you to know it's very deep, this machlokes, whether you specify, whether you generalize. There's something to it. Like mitzad echad, you can say, of course, to specify. Like, honey, I thank you. She says, for what? You better have an answer. Big trouble. No, it's sometimes you have to specify. Sometimes Dafka not specify. For you, not for that. The detail. I think the general, no, yeah, in other words, think about it. No, it's das elyon, das tachten. Yichudei law, if you specify, you killed it. Yichudei tato, you have to go into the details. Okay, let's go to the next mission. This mission has two rules. Mishnah 2. Rule number 1 is, if you confuse Boire Pri Adama, that the rules are different in each direction. If Beirach al Peda Se'ilan Boire Pri Adama, and not the Boire Pri Ha'etz. So says the Mishnah Yotza. Guys, read inside that we have time, even though we're still here. Look inside the Pnei Moshe. Beirach al Peda Yotza mipnei shepeiroi so'ilan bechlal Pri Adama hein. Why? Shahakol Gadol min haaretz, because it all grows from the haaretz. Now, actually, we're going to see in a moment that the Havamina here, which is the Maskana in Bavli, won't agree with this. The Pnei Moshe is telling you the Maskana only of the Yerushalmi and not of the Bavli as we'll speak. But that's in that direction. Abed in the other direction, if you took Peres Adama, it means you took a vegetable and you said on it, by the Priya AIDS, lo yatsa, because it's not correct. Because it did not grow from the AIDS, says the Pnei Moshe. Let's read the Pnei Moshe. Al Peres Haaretz, because she ain't Peres Adama, b'chal Priya AIDS, kedama b'gemara. Now he writes like this: the Elon. How do you define the AIDS? The Elon Nikra, not what Das Balabatim calls a tree. Kol Hecha, anything, any scenario. The Chishak Le Lepeda, whenever you take the fruit off, the Isa La'anaf, and the branch remains. But that's not enough. The next step is essential. And that same branch will produce again. That is. But even if you have a tree that has a branch and you take the fruit off and the branch stays, the branch, that branch, like a banana tree, that branch will not reproduce. You don't make only a Boire Pri Adama. That's a good call to remember. Back in the Mishnah, rule number 2. Val Kulam. Now, what does Val Kulam go to? That's the kasha. So we're going to see in the Gemara different opinions. You can say Val Kulam only goes to the topic of the Mishnah, which is Ha'etz and Adama. You could say Val Kula means on any food, even on, look inside the Charedim, outside the Pnei Moshe, Apas Alei Yain. Not every, I mean, we're going to see about that in the Gemara. Maybe on anything. Pas and Yain were mentioned in the first Mishnah of the Peder. When the Mishnah says that you make a Boire Pri Ha'etz, chutz min Yain. You make a Adama, chutz min Apas. Maybe for that also. That was that if you made Shahakol, B'di'evet, you're Yotza, Lechatchila, not. You have to know the bracha, but B'di'evet, you're Yotza. Okay, let's begin with the first part of the mission. Now, I want to say the following words of introduction. That when a person brings Bikurim, right, and part of the Bikurim is reciting gratitude to Hashem, including a phrase that for the Ha'adama, Asher Nosato Li Hashem, we thank God for the Adama, So there's a question in Hilchas Bikurim, what were to happen after you took the fruits off the tree? There are other scenarios, but just on this scenario, that tree was cut off. That tree does not exist. Bikurim you have to bring. The question is, will you still be able to say regarding the Adama, now the Adama you still have, but that source of this fruit you no longer have. Machlokes Tanoi. What's underlying that machlokes, as understood from the Gemara? The underlying of this machlokes Tanoim will be, even when something grows off the tree, there's no doubt that it gets nutrients from the tree, and there's no doubt that it also got nutrients from the ground, that the tree was only a conduit. Question is, halachically, what's the ikir, what's the tough? If we view the ikir, even if a priya eitz is the earth, so even if the tree got cut down, Adama shenosatoli. If the Adama by the priya eitz is in reference to the tree, because it came from the tree, and yes, you can call tree Adama because it's connected to the ground, but you're focusing on the tree, so then that fruit on that bikurim, you can't say. How is that relinked over here? Huge. Because if we're going to look, that's the Havamina, and that's what I'm saying now is the Maskana and Bab, but it's not the Maskana and the Yerushalmi. If we view the fruit coming from the tree be'ikir, then how can the Mishnah say that Bidi Yevet, if he said, Boy, the Pri Adama Yotza, how are you Yotza? It didn't come from the Adam, it came from the tree. Our Mishnah that allows for you, Bidi Yevet, who said, Boy, the Pri Adama on a fruit, that you're good, it's because it views the ikir nourishment of the fruit from the Adama. It will be aligned with the Shita that says, which is Rabbi Yehuda, that even if the tree got cut off when you give the Bikurim, you also recite the words Adama Shonosatali, Adama, but it goes together. That's the Havamina. Absolutely, yeah. The Mishnah has it also over there. If there was a mine and the mine, yeah, but we're not going to focus on that part. Yeah. So Rabbi Chizke b'shem Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha, the Havamina in the Yerushalmi, also the Maskan and the Bavli. This will be a case where the Rambam paskins like the Yerushalmi. The Rambam won't paskin like this only because of the Yerushalmi. Says the Rabbi Yehudi, because the Rabbi Yehuda Ovid Esho Ilonis Kikashim. Rabbi Yehuda says that you say the Esho Adom Ashenosatali. You know why? He says he gives a good mashal. He says when you take grain. Right, we mentioned you say bikurim for the shivas aminim. You bring chitim and so'idim. When you take the chitim off the ground, if you take the grains, the stalk is nothing, and you still say bikurim. The stalk now it's cut off. You actually cut it off, because I don't care that the grain came out of the shiboilas. The stalk, no, the grain came out of the ground. The Sheboilis was just a conduit. So Rabbi Yehuda views every fruit like that. And therefore, even though the tree got cut down, you can say, which means that, mamash, just like a grain, we just learned in the Mishnah, you say, before you upgrade it into Muzoinus or Hamoitzi. Because it didn't grow off the Adama, it came out of a stalk. The stalk is not in the ground. That's a Pnei Moshe. No, the stalk. Once you remove it from that stalk is not going to produce any more grains. You have to plant again. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Both meaning in both of them, whatever is growing from the stalk grew from the ground. He views Priya Eitz to have grown from the Adama, and only. In other words, the tree is the conduit. The tree is a channel. Wemela, b'diavad, you are good. But l'chachamim who say that if that tree of this bikurim fruit got cut down, you bring the bikurim, but you cannot be koira because you can't say the words ha'adama shenosatali, because the adama in this case goes to the tree. The tree is not there. L'choira, that's the havamina. You even b'diavad, if you made a boider pri ha'adama on a pri ha'etz, you're not yoytzi. You have to repeat the brach. Wheat is not a tree. They're moida by the stalk, but not by a tree, like we learned the Pnei Moshe. Now, Amar Rabbi Yosi, this we don't have in the Bavli. Divrei Hakoli, our Mishnah goes according to everyone. Don't compare one case to the other. Let's go with the Chacham. Let's say that the main source of nutrients for a Pri Ha'etz is the eitz, coming from the tree. But you don't deny the fact that where is the tree getting its koyach from? The makiv. It's getting it from the ground. So it's not wrong when you said boida pri ha'adama. And in the other direction, if you take a vegetable and you say boida pri ha'etz, it's wrong. So he argues, and that's the Pnei Moshe that we read, that peiros so ilin are bechlal peiros ha'adama, even if it's considered a something for itself, ametzias, but still the tree comes out of the ground. And the beautiful thing is when people say that the Rambam paskins, we paskin Babel Yerushalmi, paskin like the Yerushalmi. In other words, the Rambam paskins like the Chachamim. The Rambam in Bikurim, we have the Rambam. The Rambam says that if you took fruits of a tree and the tree was niktsas ha'ilan, koidem bringing the Bikurim, the Rambam says you do not say you're not koidem. He paskins like the Chachamim. And nevertheless, the Rambam paskins like this Mishnah. Who says that? Rabbi Yossi. Labavli, we link our Mishnah only with Rabbi Yehuda. If the Rambam rejects Rabbi Yehuda, which he does, then he should have rejected our Mishnah, which he doesn't. Okay. Beautiful. Now, next, let's start. When it said in the Mishnah, Va'al Kulam, now what does Va'al Kulam refer to? That, again, like we spoke out, Va'al Kulam can mean on everything the Mishnah is speaking about, which is fruits and vegetables, or Va'al Kulam maybe means on everything. And even if it means on everything, maybe not on that which the Mishnah said on Halacha Aleph specifically, that for Yayin you have to make a bread priyagaf, that for bread you have to make a Hamoitzi Lachem in Haaretz, because it's so chashuv. Chachamim gave it a bracha for itself, maybe not for that. So there's different ways of learning the Al Kulam. So let's begin. Rav Huna says, when the Mishnah says Va'al Kulam, it's not only speaking about fruits and vegetables. It's not only speaking about the first topic of the Mishnah, but it's not speaking about everything. What is not included? Va'al Kulam, chutz min hayayin min hapas. Where does the Rav Huna get it from? From Halacha Aleph, from the first Mishnah. Says the Gemara that Masnisa Amar came. When it says in the first Mishnah of this Pedic, chutz min hayayin, when the Mishnah writes clearly, shal hayayin hu oimer b'yir priyagaf. And then when the Mishnah later speaks about the Adama or the Deshoyim, and the Mishnah, chutz min hapas, because for pas you say hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. Rav Huna understands that Mishnah to say that's even b'di'evet ma'akev. However, it is lavdafka. Lavdafka means that's the way Rav Huna understood it based on our Mishnah. So, okay, good. That's our Mishnah, but there's a machlekes Tanoi. That's funny. We learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yossi yomer kol hamishana ala matbeya shetavu chachamim liyotza yedei choyvosoi. Meaning, says the Charedim, the first wine of the medium, the first under the Gemara, that the way the Charedim understands Rabbi Yossi, that this Rabbi Yossi is arguing with our Mishnah. No, even b'di'evet shahakol is not good. No, certainly on anything, any way. Okay, very good. But however, that's shita number one. Shita number two, Rabbi Yehuda Omer kol shenishtana mibriyasoi, that anything that was upgraded. What does upgraded mean? We learned wine, we learned bread. By the way, we learned rice. We learned that yesterday, right? That it begins as a hadam, according to the Yerushalmi. Once you upgrade it, it becomes a mezoinus. In other words, anything that has an upgraded bracha. V'loishina berchasai. Not only yayin, pas, rice, lo yatz. So, like this, if according to Rabbi Yehuda, if I took a fruit and I made a shahakol, b'di'evet am yoitz, because it was never upgraded l'mayosa. Once the Chachamim says that if you do X, Y, and Z to something, now that you made it better, they gave you a new bracha, that even b'di'evet shahakol won't be good. And of Meir Oimer, which is the sheet of our Mishnah, but it's more than our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that shahakol b'di'evet is good for everything. The way, not the way that the way the Pnei Moshe said. Now Meir says you don't even have to say the word shahakol. Don't be so medagde. That afilu amar, and this is so good because this means that all Jews make brachas. You made your own bracha. You said baruch and l'choira, maybe not even with Shem and Malchus. This I don't know. Baruch shebara hachefetz hazeh. Blessed is the one that created this. and know who's that. Look how pleasing this is. Now, the Chachamim never wrote such a bracha. If you said that, says Rav Meir, you're yoitzem. And let's read inside the Charedim again. The last medium and the first of the law, and going into the largest. Rav Meir, I mean, afilu loy mi boyem, that if you were b'di'evet, mishana min bracha lebracha, on anything, meaning that you said shahakol. Now, shahakol was really only formulated l'davar shein d'lumin haaretz. But if you said it on yag d'lumin haaretz, you said it on fruits, you said it on vegetables, even if you said it for pas and yayin, which Chachamim gave a new bracha when you upgraded it. Not only there, b'di'evet, shahakol is covered more, second widest line. Afilu amanusach to leitiknu rabbanan klal. You made up your own nusach. You're going to be yoitzem. Now, who does it have Huna understand our Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda? Now let me add another nuance. According to the Bavli, I think that's why the Pnei Moshe said in the Mishnah, even on according to the Bavli, our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. So if the Reisha follows Rabbi Yehuda, so l'chayra the Sefer also follows Rabbi Yehuda. That fits. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? That kol shenashtam b'riyasa v'leishina b'rchasei lo yatsa. In other words, the Charedim argue, the Pnei Moshe and the Charedim argue. The Charedim is saying that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda. Rafuna. And not yayin passing yayin. Not passing means more than that. Not passing yayin. But 1 second. But let's go another way. Now that the Gemara just established in the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Yossi, that our Mishnah can go even according to the Chachamim in the Reisha. So now that we're not bound with Rabbi Yehuda, let's not learn it like Rabbi Yehuda. Faket, let's learn our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Meir. Mishnah says and anything. Now the Mishnah didn't add the words you can make up your own bracha, but that on anything, al kulam, if you said shahakol, you're yoitza, even on pasanyai. That's what the Pnei Moshe says. Very good. No, b'di'evet. Everyone is saying b'di'evet. The whole topic is only b'di'evet. Now, let's go back. Yes, we do. B'di'evet, it's good. Yes, we do. Yeah. Now, let's go.
By the way, according to I'm just wondering, if you have a piece of bread, whatever, you don't know bracha or that, so what are you supposed to do? At least according to maybe up and out.
So we
make a jaco, or say thank you God. What are they saying?
So we learned yesterday, very good, and thank you for that type of oatmeal, they never ate. They never ate because they didn't know what bracha achrona to make. 1 second, and then we learned the Charedim that said that they didn't eat it outside of a meal. And I want to go more than that. I would argue that this shahako that we're learning, which is only b'di'evet, now have a suda. Or we mentioned, but the Alter Rebbe paskins by rice. Make all 3 brachas prior. Let's go. Let's finish. Let's just at least get the next 2 lines. So now the Gemara says that I want you to know that not only do we have it b'shem Shmuel, that halacha kirab Meir, even b'shem Rav. Now it's great because Rav and Shmuel both. Milsa the Rav also Amra came. That what? That Chad Parsoy, Persians, Umegate, that there was a Persian, a Yid, a Persian that came to Rav, and he told him, begin the ano ochel pisti. That listen here, when I eat my bread, and this is very rare by a Persian, v'lo ano chakim. I don't know what bracha to do. That they say that. We're guys, we're chavedim, we love each other. None of this is to be taken seriously. We're not racist over here. This is all good. This is I just wanted to make sure David is awake. And 1 second, and not that he came to ask, he told him a fact. But I'm not Amar. So what do? I'm not a chacham. You know what I do? I say, Baruch Divra Hadei Pisa. Blessed is the one that created this bread. What do we have in the Siddur for the infants on that first page? That's the bracha. Brich Rachmana Lakana. No, Mara the High Pita. Malka the Am. So there, I just want to say that the nusach we have in our Siddur is you're mentioning Shema Malchus. You're mentioning God, and God is a king. L'chayda, this Persian Jew, again, it didn't even say that. All he said is Baruch Divra Hadein Pita. So after the fact, he asked Rav, Nafik Hano Yedei Chayvasi. So Amalei, yes, clear. Who says that? Only Rav Meir, because the chiddush here is he didn't even say the nusach of the Anshe Knesset Sagdel. He made up his own bracha. Yes, he was yoitzer. So you have now Rav and Shmuel both agree v'di'eved, not only shahakol, any acknowledgement and blessing of God, and God willing, next year tomorrow we'll begin this whole sugya of precedent.
Okay.